Now, listen, Rob, I know last Christmas, you weren't really happy about our cheesy opening with the whole, Bing Crosby, David Bowie ringing the doorbell to come over. But listen, this year, we've got another Christmas episode of WKRP. No gimmicks, no funny stuff.
No gimmicks, no. It's not that I hate Christmas, but I don't think we play to our strengths when we try to do these little comedy bits. And this one, it's not even... This one's going to come out like at the end of October. It's not even going to come out at Christmas time. So if we tried to do any sort of cheesy thing, then it would just, it wouldn't...
Oh my gosh. That's my doorbell. Hold on a second, Rob.
Oh, nice doorbell ring. Who could it be? Who could it be at this time of night?
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Robbie. It's me.
Oh my gosh.
Merry Christmas.
Oh,
Mom.
Merry Christmas, baby.
Hi, Mom.
Mom, I wasn't expecting this. You live in a different city, and it's only October.
Well, I like to get these things over with,
Well, here, I want you to meet Mike. Mike, this is my mom. This is Betty
Mike.
Jo, my mom.
Hi, Betty Jo. Nice to meet you. And this is my mom, Karen.
Hi, Betty Jo.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Mike's mom.
Hi.
Karen.
Hi, Betty Jo's son.
Oh, it's great to meet you.
I'm always glad to meet my son's friends because they're always entertaining, if not even eccentric.
No, that's also true. Well, welcome to a very special holiday episode of Hold My Order, Terrible Dresser, the deep dive history nerd WKRP in Cincinnati podcast. As we've introduced ourselves, I'm Mike Grasso. With me is Rob MacDougall.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
In October. And with us today are Betty Jo MacDougall and Karen Grasso, our moms. Yes, the long-threatened mom episode is finally here.
Yay, our first fans. And
yes, our very first
listeners.
It's true.
And today we have, yes, another Christmas episode, the second Christmas episode of WKRP, second and last Christmas episode, Bah Humbug. And we're also going to be covering an episode about Mama Carlson, appropriately enough, Baby It's Cold Inside.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, Mama casts her shadow over both these episodes, even though she doesn't appear in Bah Humbug. We have, the figure of Mama Carlson looms large over both these episodes. So
we did choose these, intentionally, but we should also make sure we say we don't think that the two of you are the same as Mama Carlson by any means.
Well, it's only right that we should loom large over whatever it is you're doing.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Each of you were huge influences on us and our media consumption at an early age, probably.
Oh dear, not that again.
Well, we wanted to bring you on because we have talked about you a lot in this podcast. And, talk a little bit about, Rob and I talked about, watching TV from an early age. And, it's something that comes up again and again in the podcast. And so we thought we would bring you on to talk a little bit about our childhoods in front of the TV or otherwise, and just give you a chance to kind of, talk about your memories of WKRP if you have any.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or, your memories of television too, because, who knows, maybe you, are individuals with your own lives who have also spent, hours and hours watching television.
Mom, when did you get your first television?
I always remember having one, but I also remember back when I was quite young, my older half-brother Billy came to live with us for a while he went to college, and he sat me down one day and he said, "Do you know, Karen, pretty soon there's going to be pay TV." And I said, "Pay TV?" He said, "Pretty soon it's going to happen." And I said, "Well, what do you do? Do you put the quarters in the slots?" I couldn't.
Like at the bus station.
I could not figure it out. And then how many years later?
So was this like the early 60s that he was predicting?
This was, probably about 1960, early 60s. He said, there's going to be pay TV someday, and I didn't know where you put the money.
That is an awesome early TV memory. Wow.
It was a good prediction. It was ahead of his time by maybe 30 years, but still a good prediction.
We are only about 6 minutes into this episode, and we've already got a history of technology story from my mom. So match that, guys.
That's good. Well,
I can match that. I can match that. I invented TV.
Oh my gosh, you're the one.
My brother and I we were very, very taken with radio. This was in the 40s. in the olden days, and we had actually been on the Flin Flon, Manitoba Saturday morning fun club talent show on the radio. And
oh my God, you should see the look on my face right now, audience.
And we were so delighted with the whole concept of voices coming out of this huge box in the living room that we played radio for months and months after that anyway. How we did it was we hid behind the wooden panel at the bottom of the screen door, and the other person would turn the knob to adjust it, and then the person behind the door would sing a song or tell a story, and this would go on for hours. But we got we'd get very uncomfortable being all hunched over behind the door, and so we said, wouldn't it be nice if there were pictures of the people on the radio so you could stand up and be seen through the screen? And lo and behold, it came to pass.
Wow.
Well, the question is finally answered about who invented TV.
Yes.
I'm so glad we have a definitive answer for that finally.
There is no doubt.
Mike's going to put a link to the Flin Flon, Manitoba Fun Hour in the show notes.
Saturday morning fun club. Yes,
I will have to find some records of that online. I'm sure somebody's got to have it. Maybe Leah's dad, right?
No doubt.
And maybe you could also include a link for Boomtown, because your dad, in the early days of TV, was on the local show Boomtown with Rex Trailer.
Yeah.
And he was the deputy.
He was in the Peanut Gallery.
Yeah,
no way.
The deputy.
Yeah, my dad was on a local kids TV show in the 50s.
Oh my God, how did that not come up before?
Everything's coming out. This is the Christmas gifts that we're giving to each other today.
Christmas.
Sam, stop fiddling with that thing and come in here and eat your dinner.
Oh, look at it roll. Now we can watch Jackie Gleason while we eat. Bang, zoom.
It's our first television set. Dad just picked it up today. Do you have a television?
Oh, yeah, we have 2 of them.
Wow. You must be rich.
Oh, honey, he's teasing you. Nobody has 2 television sets.
So, Betty Jo, your memories go back all the way to the sort of golden age of radio. Do you remember getting your first TV?
Oh, yes, I do. That would have been in maybe 48 or 49.
Oh, wow.
I know my dad got it to watch the Yankees and the Dodgers and the World Series.
Oh, wow.
So whenever that was. And my mother was not pleased because we had a house full of kids and there were a whole bunch of other things that were really higher on the priority list than this newfangled, very expensive gadget.
Oh,
but
my gosh.
it was very, everybody else in the family outvoted my mom on that too. There was no programming before 4:00 in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
I remember when the first TV came to our town, that was before we got ours, obviously, and we used to it was a mile to walk home, but we took a long detour to walk past the appliance store because they had a TV in the window with about a 7-inch round screen. Wow. And we would stand there until 4:00 watching the Indian head pattern until Howdy Doody came on.
Oh.
We couldn't hear it, but we could see people moving, and they didn't have to hunch down behind the screen door or anything. It was wonderful.
Oh, that's great.
Sunny day, sweeping the clouds away. On my way to where the air is free. Getting down there, how to get to Sesame Street.
Yeah, so Mom, my sense is, despite that auspicious beginning, TV, at least, relatively speaking, to me, doesn't seem to have loomed really large in your life.
No.
I never thought of you as someone who watched a lot of television, but you had some kids that watched a lot of television.
That's right. Well, I didn't watch a lot of television because I had 5 brothers and they got first crack at the TV, so so there was always cowboy shows. So your father and I had been married for maybe between 5 and 8 years before we got a TV, so it never really became part of my habits. But it was we had a house full of kids too, and I found that TV was very useful. But don't tell the children's aid.
You were telling me about this is before I came along, but when Sesame Street hit the University of Wisconsin.
That's right. We were living in student housing, married student housing, and it was all apartments around a series of grassy playgrounds, and everybody had a 1 to 2 year old baby running around in the grassy playground. In the fall of 1969, all of a sudden at 11 o'clock one morning, every single one of those children disappeared. And I found out later that that was the first broadcast of Sesame Street, and every good mother in the universe had found out that there was educational TV that actually was supposed to be good for kids. And so every little kid in Eagle Heights residence was just whipped out of the park and in front of the TV, and I got nothing but rave reviews from all the moms. They said, the kids love it, it's just like commercials.
Oh my God!
Get them out of that park and sit them down in front of the TV.
Yeah.
Sesame Street was a big part of my, I grew up in the late 70s, and so PBS had Sesame Street, the Electric Company. Oh God, I just realized we should talk about Mr. Rogers and what Dad used to say about Mr. Rogers.
Yes. That's a different kettle of fish entirely from Sesame Street.
Yes, poor Michael. He loved Mr. Rogers. I liked Mr. Rogers.
He gave me self-esteem, which I needed very badly at that
and
time.
Your Nana liked Mr. Rogers, and we would watch it with you. But when your dad was with you, when I was working and you wanted to watch it, he did not like Mr. Rogers.
How can you not like Mr. Rogers?
He used to swear at him, if I'm not mistaken.
My dad called Mr. Rogers a shithead. I remember it vividly. I know. Sorry for the language, Betty Jo. I got to be true to reality here. My dad probably did not like how gentle and kind he was.
I think maybe it didn't kind of match with what he thought, because it was.
If
so
only
different.
my dad had had Mr. Rogers growing up instead of Cowboys and Rex Trailer and everything, maybe he would have been a little more sensitive.
So your dad, he said, turn off that Mr. Rogers and watch this movie about alien abductions, right?
Yes, exactly. That's usually how it went. So, there you go. But I got the best of both worlds. I got Mr. Rogers and I got the UFO documentaries. So,
caller, go ahead.
Hi, boys. It's me, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Hey, Mrs. Ollie. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you, Syphil?
I'm good, thank you. Hey, thank you so much for all that stuff you sent me last week. And the month before that, and the clothes.
Did the shirts fit, dear?
The shirts fit great. Those are expensive shirts you sent me.
She sent me stuff? It's okay.
Yeah, she sent me stuff all the time, dude.
Hey, listen, there's one reason why I'm calling, Ollie.
Yeah?
I've been watching this show, dear, and you're slouching. I'd love to see you stand up tall like Syphil does.
Yeah, dude. Mom, we're trying to do a show, okay?
Watch your mouth, young man.
Yeah, dude, why don't you chill out on Mom?
Well, I guess I didn't know this was the Syphil and Ollie's mom show. So you guys just finish the show without me.
Has he always been like that?
Well, he's having a bad day.
Will you still buy me lunch today?
Of course.
Okay, let's go.
Bye.
I know we had multiple TVs in the house.
Yes, we did, but I must say for the record, Michael, that you were...
here comes the lecture.
You were read to since you were an infant, and you love to read, and you love to read today.
Oh, of course.
Let the record state that then, because you absorbed every single thing that you either read or saw, then you became a TV fanatic. And yes, we did have TVs scattered throughout the house.
I remember Dad had a black and white, which we used to watch the Bruins games on in the early 80s in the bedroom, and that would be the one time sort of we would have something to watch together. I've talked previously in the podcast about how when Nana would look after me, I would watch Doctor Who on PBS.
That's right, because it happened at like 7:30 at night when Dad was coming to pick me up at work.
And see, that's the thing about WKRP is that you didn't watch it in syndication because you were working nights at that point in the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Our TV was down in the rec room. And
I'm very jealous of your 70s rec room, by the way,
We had a classic 70s rec room. It had the sort of plasticky walls that kind of looked like wood grain paneling, And
sure.
But you mentioned Doctor Who. I remember that Doctor Who would come on maybe at like 6:30 on PBS after some kids show like Tales of the Green Forest or something that I like to watch. And I had seen, one scary episode of Doctor Who. So I was really scared by Doctor Who. And when the opening with the time tunnel, just the sort of wah would come up, like I would just run, I didn't have time to turn off the TV. All that could be done was just to run straight upstairs as fast as I could,
I didn't know you were suffering it. Just stay downstairs, Robbie.
Yeah, this is the the Stranger Things phenomenon. A lot can go on down in the rec room. The parents just don't come down. So
yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
I think months went by that I didn't go down in the rec room. It was wonderful.
So how was it with 4 kids, Betty Jo? Did they fight over control of the TV very much? I'm trying to get a sense. I mean, there's an age difference there, obviously.
Oh, yeah,
but
12 years over the 4. Yeah, I don't know. I was never down there, Mike.
I know. I guess you needed somebody down there as a spy or an inside person, to tell you what's going on.
I think by the so when I was little, that was the TV, and then by the time my little sister and little brother were around and watching TV, we had become a 2 TV house, and Mom and Dad had a TV in their room. And actually, what I remember when I think about watching TV with my parents, like, even though we had the big TV down in the rec room, it was actually the little TV up in the bedroom became the social TV. So like we would all sit on, I don't know if they wanted us there, but we would all sit on Mom and Dad's bed watching like MASH or
that's right.
LA Law or Hill Street. These are the shows I remember watching with them sort of when I was a little bit older.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I remember we always had a Super Bowl party. That was like one of the big communal TV things. But do you remember when we had everybody over to see the Thriller video for the first time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You had a Thriller party.
We had a Thriller party. We had just gotten cable, like that year, it was 83, and everybody knew we had cable, so they all came over to watch the debut of Michael Jackson's Thriller.
I think it was on Halloween night, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was around Halloween.
It was around Halloween.
Yeah, 30-some-odd years ago this month. Yeah, wow.
That's great.
And really, to show how the TV situation of the Grassos, I went out and bought a special little tiny black and white TV, and I called it my OJ TV so that I could watch the OJ trial when I came home at night.
In the 90s.
I made dinner.
Oh, my gosh.
So I know that's not quite the era, but
no,
I had
but
an
that's
OJ TV.
Wow.
Just for OJ, sold a TV. That's the black and white thing. It also makes me think of.
Yes, that's right. We had a black and white for a long time. We didn't. Well, color came late to Canada, much later than in the U.S. And there were through the early 70s. There were only a couple of shows that were in color. So why would you bother?
She means actual color, like not television, just color.
Oh, okay. So
frozen
Canada
gray.
itself was black and white until 19. You know what? It was Pierre Trudeau. He brought color to
That's
Canada.
True. It's true. I give him all the credit. But anyway, so finally we decided that there was enough color broadcasting going on that we could spring for a color TV, and probably sometime in the late 70s. And we announced it to the kids with great fanfare, and they looked at us very blankly and said, "But we already have a color TV." And they'd been watching our black and white TV, and they saw it in color.
Yeah,
they truly believed it was in color.
Wow.
Yeah, this is one of those nowhere band things where just memory fools you, because I have no memory of us owning a black and white TV. I can picture, Sesame Street. All the Muppets are in vivid color in my memories.
Wow. Yeah. Geez.
So we should have saved our money.
Well, there you go. No, all the money was going into the phone that you rented from Bell.
It was a lovely phone.
This is your grandfather, Arthur boy, back from the cold, dark grave.
But you're dead.
I just said back from the cold, dark grave. Try to pay attention, okay?
I'm sorry.
I've come here.
Wait a minute. This isn't going to be another one of those Charles Dickens Christmas Carol things, is it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, boy.
What?
I said, oh, boy.
Oh.
I suppose we need to talk about WKRP.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a pity, because I could talk about my children for indefinitely. But
you have a lot to be proud of, Betty Jo. That's for sure. So we have 2 episodes of WKRP to talk about, and the first one is Bah Humbug, the Christmas episode, the Christmas Carol episode. We've seen the Christmas Carol story a million times, told a million different ways, but this is WKRP's take on it. The big guy has to be cast as Scrooge, unfortunately. We love the big guy, but at this time of Christmas, he is not giving out Christmas bonuses, and he's going to put the money into a new control desk for the DJ booth. And this prompts, of course, the usual retinue of ghosts and spirits to visit him to try and imbue him with the Christmas spirit of generosity. Karen, Betty Jo, what did you think of Bah Humbug?
I'm a WKRP virgin, I was,
wow.
I'm an alien in your world. So it was very familiar to me as a Dickensian story. I was really taken with, Jennifer's hair. And I was busy thinking, I was following the story because I knew it already, but mostly I was thinking about how different the characters were from what I had pictured from what I'd heard you guys talking about. And
interesting.
I don't know, a poster of WKRP that I've seen. So I was processing that and probably didn't absorb the moral of the story as deeply as I should have.
Oh, well, the moral is pretty threadbare when you think about it. The big guy is a generous guy. He is a fun-loving guy, and he's a kind man.
That's one of the big problems with the episode. We get they're doing the Christmas Carol pastiche, and that is a time-honored thing. They lampshade it. So I'm curious as to at what point in history it became hokey, because by 1980, it's already hokey enough that they call it out. Arthur says, yes. Are we doing one of those Christmas Carol things? But, Arthur is not Scrooge, and he's not Scroogey at all. And so it just, you have to just accept that and move on, I guess.
Well, that's the one thing we talked about very early on today, is that the motivation for Arthur to be so Scrooge-like is the fact that he's, still under Mama's thumb. He's still trying to do right by her and impress her with the purchase of this new DJ control panel.
Yeah, it seemed to me as if the actors had a lot of fun with it, though.
Oh, God. Absolutely.
That's what I took away from it, besides bringing back bad memories of being cast in a elementary school play, and I was cast as Bob Marley.
No, not Bob Marley.
Bob Marley. That's a cool play.
Can we edit that out?
Did you have some of those brownies before we started tonight, Mom? Or?
Look, if it hadn't been for one of Johnny Fever's brownies, I wouldn't even be in this dream right now anyway.
Oh, lighten up, AC. There's nothing wrong with those brownies. Just because it was Johnny. Everyone always jumps to the wrong conclusions. Poor Johnny. Always trying to do the right thing. Always misunderstood. Johnny was the kind of guy that always...
Look, can we just go?
Always... Sure.
But I had bad memories because Nana got a little bit overeager that I had this part and made me practice over and over again.
My dear sainted Irish grandmother was a stage mother.
She made me practice over and over again, dragging the imaginary chains around the kitchen floor. And I would say, Mommy, I've had enough. I don't want to do it anymore. So they ended up canceling the play. I can't remember why. And I was so happy that they did it.
Did you go to the authorities?
Because of reports of children in chains? Or
I know, right? Yeah. Oh my God, that story is amazing.
The memory didn't come back until we watched till the episode.
Jesus. But yeah, we were talking about the actors having a lot of fun. How much fun was Tim Reed having in his Ghost of Christmas Present outfit and roaring and shutting off the music with a snap of his fingers? You could tell he was really
It was like those lights that you clap them on and off. It was wonderful.
Oh my gosh, the clapper.
He was definitely having a good time. And, of course, Gordon Jump was, hamming it up big time in multiple roles as Marley, as Arthur, as young Arthur.
Young Arthur. I loved young Arthur. I love that whole scene in the 1950s because not only are the actors having a lot of fun, and Richard Sanders gets to play Les as an office boy, which was really
I liked
cute.
him a lot.
Yeah, it was cute.
Young Les is pretty fey, don't you think? Like we have
fey,
questions about Les's sexuality in the present day of 1970 to 80, but yeah.
Well, it could be that classic thing where you're acting, it's like the Peter Pan thing. You've got to act like a boy even though you have the body of a man. Mm-hmm. So you come across a little bit sort of,
all that gee whiz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And just the amount of 50s nostalgia in that about oh, these new Volkswagens, they're never going to sell. And, oh, rock and roll, that's never going to stick around. And who get, the big guy gets a flamingo, one of those great plastic flamingos as a gift. It's so great. And you could tell they were loving the 1950s nostalgia just the way we love the 1980s nostalgia today.
Oh, but 1950s nostalgia is much better.
Oh, is it?
Much more nostalgic.
Hey, everybody, I've got the Fenny Volkswagen account.
Oh, Arthur, give me a big hug. Oh, that's wonderful.
I was quite a salesman, my dear. Nobody's going to buy those cars. They're too small and they're too ugly. It's a fad, just like TV.
Don't you listen to him, dear. Your mother's going to be so proud.
Always trying to please Mom.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. The sort of wood-paneled family station, and the grumpy old guy complains about rock and roll music, but to our ears, it sounds like beautiful music. It's I think
it's Perry Como.
It's Perry Como, right.
The one that I think I remembered the most from my childhood, part of this episode, was the Christmas Future, set in the futuristic looking, quote unquote, WKRP of the not so distant future. Johnny says, as the ghost of Christmas yet to come, it's not as far ahead as you might think. And all we see is a fully automated station with Herb just basically manning the automated phones and, going home, after a full day's hard work pressing the button like in the Jetsons,
Not so funny nowadays.
No.
With Clear Channel.
No, yeah, exactly. Automated radio. Not Johnny says a mouthful when he says it's not so far off as you might think. And this is... We've talked before about how WKRP is haunted by the fear of automation of radio. And this episode really, I think Jamie Weinman said on his blog that we see three moments in radio history. So the kind of the family station, the regular, the time that
rock and roll station in the
FM 70s, and then the future, which is just, I was about to say a boot stamping on a human face forever, but the Orwell quote, but it's Herb pressing a button on a computer forever. Now I did note, they signal that it's the future by having it be all glowing and white and stuff. Herb is, he's reading a girly magazine that's called Girls the Way You Like 'Em. And, which, I think that means that, there's a great deal of accuracy in their prediction of the future of radio, but perhaps less accuracy in their prediction of the future of, I don't know, pornography or girly magazines or.
Well, Herb's old fashioned that way, I guess.
And really, how funny that Herb was the survivor.
Well, right. He's right. Exactly. It's the Peter principle, Mom. It's
absolutely.
You know about that.
Rise them up.
Oh, that's right. And we get to hear the fates of all the other characters. That's pretty, both dark and wonderful. Let me see. Bailey runs a TV station in Chicago.
Oh.
Andy breeds guard dogs in New Mexico. Jennifer got married and bought an island off the coast of Sardinia. Les became the Republican whip of the U.S. Senate.
Oh, so good, yeah.
Venus bought a clothing company called Upwardly Mobile. And Fever just sort of disappeared.
Oh, and how much fun is Howard Hessman having, playing the Ghost of Christmas Future, having to defend Johnny, because, of course, the big guy thinks he got dosed with some pot brownies, and, always blame Fever. It's always Fever's fault. And you can just see behind Howard Hessman's, usual, great sort of, comedic mask, you can see that little smile behind his lips going, I'm just going to milk this for all it's worth.
It's nice that he can be the ghost of Christmas Yet to Come without changing his look at all. He's already dressed for it. All they do, the one nice touch is they change his mug to black. But
Yep, he's got no names on that mug. It's just all black. And yeah, he's got the Black Death t-shirt on all the time, so it's perfect.
What's this? It's all white. I thought my future was black.
This is the bullpen.
Oh, gee, we must have made some changes.
Oh, yes.
Good morning. This is the Zeroid Corporation of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Hello, Herb Tarlick here, General Sales Manager of WKRP in Cincinnati.
Hello, Herb.
I'm going to ask if your company would like to advertise on our station.
No, thank you, Herb.
Perhaps I could call back next week.
Yes, Herb. Please do that. This has been a computerized transmission.
Okay, fine.
Herb's sort of taken to talking to himself now.
It's gonna be a nice Christmas. Little Herbie home from the forestry service. Bunny home from the convent. We'll all be together again. Oh. Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas, Herb. That sure isn't like the old days.
You know, last Christmas episode, Mom, I talked about me being kind of spoiled and being an only child and getting a lot of gifts and worrying about once I discovered that Santa wasn't real, that I would all of a sudden get half the gifts I had in the past, which was my only concern. But you must have some great sort of, Christmas stories, as it were, not to coin a phrase, but
well, I do have a couple Michael anecdotes that I can tell.
She has been waiting for this episode for so long, you guys. I swear she's been waiting to give these embarrassing stories to our hundreds of listeners.
The teeming dozens.
Well, you know that we always had the tradition for decades, going visiting on Christmas Eve.
Yeah,
we would
always
make the rounds of the family house and friends, and we'd
nice.
always
That's
end
sweet.
up back in the same city, Revere, visiting Dad and my friends, Frankie and Kathy and their family.
Who introduced, Frankie did anyway, you and Dad for a blind date.
Yeah, Dad and Frankie have been best friends since they were teenagers, and if it wasn't for Frankie, I never would have met your dad.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway,
he's also my godfather, which, as you know, among the Italian people is a very sacred relationship,
yes.
to quote the Godfather.
Yes. But anyways, you would start to get very, very anxious when it got close to midnight. But of course, we were all, the adults were all visiting and having a good time.
Having a couple drinks, maybe?
And you'd be saying, we have to go home. If we're not home sleeping, Santa won't bring my gifts. So, we realized, that really wasn't fair. And then we would leave when you would start getting anxious. But then every Christmas morning, you'd come up and sit in the special chair in the corner. Do you remember? You would wait, and we would bring your gifts to you. You'd open them one by one, and you'd be very happy. And as you got a little bit older, maybe 5 or 6.
Maybe when I was 34, 35.
No, 5 or 6. I started getting very nervous when we'd get your Christmas gifts, because you'd always want these very, very hard games, these board games, and we'd have to play with you, and I wouldn't understand half of them. And I remember saying, Michael, don't you just want to play Trouble, where you just pop the little thing and we move around?
Mike said, "No, I have this changeling game set in Renaissance Prague that I really want to run."
And I do. I just have one regret, and then I'll step back. But you used to always want to play Scrabble, and I used to hate Scrabble. It used to make me very nervous, so I would only play a little bit, and then I'd say, "Well, don't you want to play Monopoly? Don't you want to play Sorry or Trouble? All the baby games that were easy for me."
Candyland, yeah.
No, Mommy, I don't want to play that. So,
do you notice how many of these childhood stories, Rob and Betty Jo, involve the word anxiety and worry?
If you leave the party as soon as Mike gets anxious, I think
you're leaving the party pretty early.
I say that with love.
No. Listen, that's what this episode is. This is like a roast. This is like our version of a roast.
Well, now that I think back, maybe it's all our fault anyway. So.
Oh my God!
We're saying once we get next episode, we talk about whether it's fair to blame Mother for everything.
That's what mothers are for.
So Betty Jo, aren't you happy now that you had 4 children instead of one horrible, spoiled only child?
I'm just picturing you sitting there in the chair and people bringing your presents to you. The little prince. I love it. No, it didn't quite happen like that. It was mass chaos at our house, except for the Christmas that we spent at the cottage right after we built it, and it wasn't insulated or anything like that. And
this is an extremely Canadian story.
That's right. It's a log cabin. There was no road, no electricity, no running water. Nothing of the niceties of civilization, but it was just, it was and still is beautiful.
This would probably be right around the time of this episode. This might be Christmas 1980, right?
1980, yes,
exactly.
That's right. We spent it because the cottage was just new, so we decided to spend Christmas there, and it happened that was the Christmas that temperature dropped to minus 40.
And for those of you scoring at home, Celsius and Fahrenheit, they're basically almost identical.
Minus 40 is the same, so you don't have to do any math on this. Just know it was bitterly cold. It was wonderful Christmas because the kids they made all of their presents for one another.
Did you have to burn the presents and the sort of wrapping paper to get a fire going?
We had every article of clothing that we had with us in all our sleeping bags, and we were huddled around the little wood stove.
God. The stove was going, my dad was chopping wood, the stove was going the whole time, and, maybe after we'd been there for 3 hours, the frost at the very top of the windows started to thaw, and then after we'd been there for 6 hours, it had sort of moved down halfway down through the windows. And then the other thing I remember, so there's no road into the cottage at this time. In the summer, you take a boat across, and in the winter, you ski or walk across on the ice. And just like the opening of our podcast, we're all sitting there, in the middle of the woods, frozen 40 below, wolves howling kind of thing. And there's a knock at the door.
Like we're 5 or 10 miles from the nearest human habitation.
You must have been scared out of your wits. Oh my God.
The ghost of Christmas past. What could we think?
And actually, it was my grandmother, it was my dad's mother, who had snowshoed across the lake.
With a backpack on her back full of food and presents because she thought we were probably starving to death and had not thought to bring Christmas presents.
Boy, I'll tell you, I all of a sudden, I feel like my Christmas stories are just like, this just makes me feel like, why didn't you take us out to the middle of the woods somewhere and teach us about togetherness and family?
Michael, you must admit it, when Betty Jo and Rob were just talking, the Grassos were breaking out in a cold sweat listening to that story. So
we prefer the kind of place. We prefer the kind of place where you can go and there's like full room service, like
Vegas room service.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, I'm glad that's over. Now we can go home and act normal again.
What do you mean?
Oh, come on. That cornball routine? I love you, Daddy. Give me a break.
I pity you.
Why?
After you.
Thank you so much.
Me first.
No, me.
No, me.
No, me.
Me.
Honey, you look so tired. Would you like me to drive?
Oh, homie, I think I'm going to be sick.
There
was a farmer who had a dog, and Bingo was his name. Oh, B-I-N-G-O, 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 and Bingo was his name. Oh, homie, get in the car.
This is where you belong.
Yeah, Homer. Room for one more.
One of us. One of us. One of us. One of us.
Oh dear, Michael, you're going to make me tell that pot brownie story, which I think I only told you for the first time a couple of years ago. Or?
Yeah, well, no, actually, it was when we watched the episodes for the first time last month.
That's what it was, and it triggered the memory. Well, you were probably, I was still working part-time at nights. You might have been 6 or 7 years old. And, Nana and my brother Robert lived downstairs.
Yep.
And before I went to work, Nana came up with a plate of brownies. And she says, Karen, look what Robert made some brownies.
This is my mother's younger brother.
Yes, and he, the black sheep of the family.
Yeah, I was in his 20s at the time.
Yeah, in his 20s. So, I love brownies. So, I think I might have had 3 of them because they were very good. Had them with a cup of coffee with Nana. And so then it was time to go to work. I think I would go at like 2:30 or something like that. I drove to work. I'm driving to work and I still get all chilled when I think about it. I'm driving over, the Mystic River.
Tobin Bridge.
The Mystic River from the movie and the big giant bridge that goes over it. All of a sudden, I swore there was poisonous gas in my car. And I said, oh my God, there's gas in the car. Gas, I can smell it. There's something wrong with the car. I stopped at the toll booth because they still had toll booth takers there. And I put it in park. I jumped out of the car. Help me. There's a gas smell in my car. And the man, I still didn't know what was wrong with me. I really thought I got paranoid, in other words. He stuck his head and he goes, lady, there's nothing wrong with your car. Really? I'm crying at this point. So I drove to work Summer Street, just a few miles away, parked the car, and was totally out
spaced
of it.
Out, yeah.
Maybe for another 2 hours, I think. So
because you had a high tolerance for pot at that point in your life.
No, I didn't.
I'm just kidding.
I didn't. So anyways, I don't think I thought about it until Robert made some sort of snide remark. And
did you like the brownies? Something like that?
Yeah, you ate my brown. What did you do? Oh my God, you did that. You did that. You drugged me. And he didn't finally admit it. A couple of years ago, he finally admitted it for true. And he said, as God is my witness, I didn't know Mommy was going to give you the brownies. He said, I made them for myself.
That could be a sitcom plot right there.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I still don't know if Nana ate some and
she probably
loved them.
No, she probably loved them. Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
She was protesting the Vietnam War, for God's sake, in the 60s.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My only pot story is from Easter. So,
oh man, we're getting all the holiday pot stories. Yes,
well, that's when the good times roll. And it also involves my younger brother. You got to watch those younger brothers.
Oh my God!
My younger brother was just back from Morocco, and he had brought some souvenirs, and so.
Morocco, that's got to be some serious stuff.
Oh, well, this was in the olden days. Things were not as powerful then as they are now, is what I'm told.
I bet it was hashish.
But it was powerful enough that somebody's husband, who shall remain nameless, and my younger brother were having a wonderful evening. And I finally gave up on them and said, I'm going to bed. Just remember that the Easter Bunny has to come. And, we'll take care of it. Don't you worry. And so the next morning, the kids went out and they couldn't believe it. There was nothing hidden at all. There were all these Easter eggs spread out over the living room carpet and on the dining room table.
It's the easiest hunt ever.
And meanwhile, they had been laughing. They were so pleased with themselves. They had done such a fabulous job of hiding the Easter eggs. So,
gosh,
wow.
This is good material. I want to back up quickly though, just to say, Karen, first of all, I'm so glad you told that story. I'm so glad that you're okay and it all worked out. But I'm also really glad that you told a story that involved saying "ka" so much and even "cock the ka."
I was loving
that's
it.
That's going to be really everyone outside of Route 128 is going to really enjoy that.
Awesome.
All right, Rough Boys from Pete Townsend. And it's 8:07 in the a.m. on the mighty KRP, where the doctor always delivers. Here's the boss, Springsteen, Hungry Heart, my kind of tune.
What happened to the heat?
The building furnace went out last night.
I don't like this. Do something.
Well, we could huddle together. Or you could do what I've been doing to take the chill off.
At 8 o'clock in the morning? I don't think so. You know, of course, that liquor is not allowed at the station.
Yeah.
And I think it's against FCC regulations.
Yeah, so it's freezing to death.
Well, speaking of cold, and speaking of mothers, our second episode this week is Baby It's Cold Inside. And in this episode, the heat is not on in the Phlegm building. And so people are keeping warm as best they can. Jennifer's wearing a big fur coat, and Johnny is drinking, I guess it's described as brandy on the air. And who should turn up at the station but Lillian, Arthur's mother?
Yes, and there's some great sight gags with Mama walking by the window of the DJ booth, and Johnny thinks he might be hallucinating for a moment as he sees Mama Carlson out there. And pretty soon Mama sets up camp in the big guy's office and also begins drinking because it's so cold. It's so funny. I guess this was the only thing to do when you were cold back in the early 80s was just grab a bottle and start drinking, essentially.
Any excuse.
Yes, I guess so. At work. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm also struck by how quickly everyone gets drunk. Like, I think Jennifer has one sip and she is completely un-Jennifer-like for the rest of the episode.
That's the best thing about this episode, isn't it, Rob? Everybody, it's like a misrule episode. The world's turned upside down. Like, Lillian shows her softer side. As you say, Jennifer gets kind of giggly and flirty. Johnny is racked with anxiety about getting fired
You're
from
right.
the station.
It's totally misrule Carnival. Everyone is their opposites in this episode. Yeah.
Well, that was an unkind thing to do, to introduce me to WKRP with this episode then, because I'm totally confused as to the personalities of these people.
That's a good point.
But what I would say is, even if this is an uncharacteristic episode of WKRP, I mean, I think it's quite a good one. I enjoyed it a lot.
It's really good,
but,
yeah.
I think the reason, of course, that we wanted our moms on this one is because, this is such a great episode for Mama Carlson.
Yeah, Carol Bruce really does an incredible job in this episode. She really has been, she's been forced to be kind of one note up to this point. She's the ogre, she's the dragon lady, she's the ice queen, you know. She comes in and everybody has to scramble to act, you know, accordingly. But in this episode, we see her we hear her entire origin story. We hear her entire background.
She even gets to do a musical number. She sings Someone to Watch Over Me.
Yeah, and she was quite good too. I mean, I couldn't really take my eyes off of her. This is one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, yeah.
It's mainly because of her.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I was thinking afterwards, after watching it, you know, I had been led to believe that she was, I mean, I think somebody referred to her as Genghis Khan and you know, a sort of a bullying, domineering termagant, really. And then she was just really sweet. I mean, she got silly when she got drinking, but she was a perfectly lovely lady. And I wondered, I remember thinking that I was a little bit disappointed because I really wanted to see that really bullying termagant.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, that's really odd. Why would I be interested in that kind of an archetype? And it's almost like an archetype of our collective unconscious, that kind of a woman and that kind of a mother. And I know a lot of mothers, and not one of them is like that. Why do we have that figure in our minds? And so many books and performances of different kinds include, you know, a figure of fun in a woman like that. And I've been agonizing about that. Are we trying to dissociate ourselves from our mothers?
Yeah.
Is it maybe part of the leaving the nest? You have to get really ticked off with your parents at some point, and particularly your mom?
Well, I mean, that's all really, really interesting thoughts, Betty Jo, especially how we have seen in WKRP over the course of the seasons, they've really tried to make people who were once two-dimensional characters into three-dimensional characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done a pretty good job of it so far. When Venus came into the station for the first time, he was a walking black stereotype. And by the end of the first season, we get to hear all of his background in Vietnam, and we get to really know him as a person, as opposed to this sort of, again, walking stereotype. Jennifer, you know, we think she's the blonde bombshell who's kind of ditzy, but she's actually the one who keeps the station running. And with Mama Carlson, she's been used as a punchline since the very first episode. And this episode makes her into a more three-dimensional, a fully realized character who, yes, maybe she has some flaws, but there's reasons for them. And it really all boils down to her relationship with Arthur's late father.
I was on the Broadway stage. Does that surprise you?
A little. What year was that?
I started in the chorus, but I had talent. And before long, the parts got better. That's how I met Hank. He saw me in a play and he came backstage after the show. He congratulated me on my magnificent performance, and I congratulated him on his magnificent shoulders.
Sounds like love at first sight.
No, he had run out of the theater and bought me a bouquet of lovely little violets from some street vendor. The man was so corny and so completely Midwestern. We were married in 6 months.
And he fished.
Oh, God, did he. Hank loved having a good time. Too much so, I think. Sometimes he neglected the business. So, little by little, I got involved, and I was good at it. Well, after a while, I was running the whole thing. I just took over. That hurt Hank. Oh, but I was too busy to notice. He felt unnecessary. And in the end, I guess that's what really...
And that's interesting but you can still tell that this was decades ago because they had to make her a strong woman and make her husband a weak man.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having just a strong woman and a strong man. So that's the olden days.
And was she suggesting that it ruined her marriage?
No.
I mean, she sounded as if she was totally devoted to him, but then that she took over. And that's when it happened, or that, it faded off and she didn't really say what had happened to the husband.
Yeah, she had to step up because she loved him, but
he was a goof
weak.
like Arthur.
He was a boy in a man's body. Yeah. And so she had to be strong. So again, it was the times. Maybe nowadays it would be, yes, I was a strong woman and I knew how to run the business, and my husband was strong too, and he didn't mind. So that's the difference.
Yeah, because they often they definitely do suggest what Mom was alluding to, that her regret is that somehow in being strong that hurt him somehow, and they didn't break up, but that somehow diminished him. And it's strongly suggested throughout the show that Arthur is, he's sort of weak in the ways he's weak because he has this domineering mother. But that's like the thing that undercuts that is that, like, we love Arthur. Like, he's wonderful. And these two episodes are not actually great showcases for that. Like, because they falsely make him into Scrooge in the first episode, and then he's really not in this episode. But he's like this super decent, sweet, wonderful man. And yeah, he's kind of like a big kid. And so it's really neat to hear that his dad was like that. I'd forgotten this episode, and I sort of thought that his dad was kind of like a overbearing ogre, kind of like the mother. And I had completely forgotten that Arthur is clearly like his dad.
The first clue that we have is that Lillian says, "Oh, he did love to fish," and right. You get that tells you the whole story. Yeah. I mean, he's the son of the Fisher King, and he's the Fisher King. It tells you everything you need to know in a very, very short amount of time, and that's one of the things that we've talked about that WKRP did so well compared to other sitcoms of the time. It could be subtle when it needed to be subtle, and it could kind of hint at character traits without having to hammer you over the head with them.
Yep. And that sweet last scene was so sweet. He was there for the mom, and they went off to the cemetery. Very quiet, arm in arm, and he was there for her. Without 10 seconds, it was beautiful.
And that's another scene where it's, one word here, cemetery, violets. All of a sudden, why Lillian got drunk, why Lillian opened up to everybody at the station, why she was so emotional, because it's that one time a year where they have to go and visit him at the cemetery.
Mama! Where have you been?
I stopped by to pick you up. You weren't there.
Well, obviously.
You were here.
Yes, I was here, making a complete fool out of myself.
You?
I haven't acted this way in years.
Well, I wouldn't worry about it, Mama. You see, up here everybody makes a fool out of himself, but it's okay. I've driven to every florist in this town, can't find violets. Does it have to be violets?
Well, this year we just won't take any.
You don't like doing this, do you?
I don't like cemeteries, no. But it's important to me. You don't forget a man like your father.
Yes, ma'am.
And if Arthur is so sweet, and and he's got a great marriage, and if Hank was this lovable, goofy guy, then maybe we have to rethink maybe Lillian wasn't such a bad mother, right? In fact, sort of the sort of thesis of the show that he has this terrible mother, what really does she have to feel bad about?
Well, yeah, I mean, and then you have the idea that, both parents can't be goofs. Somebody's got to be the responsible one. If one of them, is somebody who likes to fly off and go and fish. And, even the way that Lillian and Hank courted, Hank saw her on stage on Broadway and liked what he saw and went backstage. That's something out of a musical in and of itself. Mm-hmm. But it shows you Hank was impulsive. He was, he probably was marrying below his station. If Hank is like this, I think one of our listeners, Rob, said that the big guy is kind of based on one of the Taft family, the big family in Ohio.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. So, the idea, I think, is that the Carlsons are big movers and shakers in Cincinnati. And so he married a showgirl, for God's sake, that's not the kind of thing that a responsible son will do.
And that sets up, we haven't gotten to it, but there's a later episode where, again, Lillian and Jennifer have a conversation, that really points out similarities there. And Lillian sees herself in Jennifer. Jennifer's not a showgirl, of course, but she sees, you're this beautiful woman, but you also are much smarter than that, and you're using your looks to get to a certain point, but you can be so much more, that kind of thing. That's there.
If nothing else in this episode, they do admire each other's fur coats.
Oh, and I admired them too.
Well, you don't see fur coats anymore.
No, they were stunning.
They gave me the willies.
I'm a little lamb who's lost in the wood. I know that I could always be good to one who'll watch over me.
Well, and Carol Bruce too.
Well, geez, yeah.
And she was on Broadway, right? She
much like Sylvia Sidney, who played Mama Carlson in the pilot, and Alan Ann McClary, our favorite, Carmen. She was a musical actress, and much like these other actresses who were on WKRP, they started on the stage, and in the 70s, they were women of a certain age, and so the jobs they could get in Hollywood were these sitcom jobs. And each of these women, I mean, Sylvia Sidney was only in the one episode, but she was good. And Carol Bruce just continues to be fantastic.
Yeah, she has perfect timing. I love her timing.
Her comic timing is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, and she's on a cast with a lot of people with really good comic timing. So she makes it work. And again, I bet you she just sunk her teeth into the fact that she didn't have to be the Harridan in this episode, that she could have some depth and that she could have some richness to her character.
I just called up on Google pictures of Carol Bruce earlier, and she's like this classic sort of 40s pinup. In fact, she's on the cover of Life magazine for September 9, 1940, in like a bathing suit or something. And just sort of
she is quite gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I just brought her up on the phone here.
Wow.
Yeah, great smile. Oh look, there she's saluting.
Yeah,
a World War II photo.
We need you to have a seat, Bert.
Okay. You got a blindfold, too? This isn't easy.
It really isn't.
Oh, God. I really thought I'd made it.
I know it's unkind, but it's generous and it's fair.
Wasn't easy. We'll see how you do without my Rolodex.
We're going to take that risk.
You make me sick. You're the dying empire. We're the future. Bert, control yourself.
I'm the head of accounts, damn it! I'm sure we'll regret it. I'm serious. See you on the breadlines, fellas.
As we were watching the episode, Mom, when we were kind of watching it together, every now and again, you'd catch a little glimpse of something on the screen, like, oh my God, it's a Rolodex. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it's an old-fashioned multi-line phone. Oh my God, it's a 4-cabinet filing cabinet. You got nostalgic about the office supplies in this episode.
Absolutely. You have to remember, I grew up in an office. I went to work Blue Cross Blue Shield right out of high school, 17 years old.
Oh my God.
So I've been working in an insurance environment for, 44 years or something like that. So the Rolodex, back in those days, was like your laptop. And you had all your it's like your telephone. You had all your contact information. You must have that Rolodex. That's how you found people to talk to. So that Rolodex really, if we ever see one at a flea market, I think we should.
You want to pick one up for nostalgia's sake?
And
this shows you that it runs in the family, getting nostalgic about just silly everyday stuff.
No, that's great. That's great. It makes me think of. I'm sure this is a real thing, but it was a detail I loved on Mad Men, that when that's the thing that when you get fired, you got to make sure
you grab the Rolodex.
Joan brings her Rolodex with her, and that means that she's still in the game, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. That's your contacts. That's your lifeline. And then the filing cabinets, for some reason.
It was the discussion about Les's walls that made you think. Well, it's the classic joke. Like, apart from the turkey drop, like if you mention Les's, that's the one thing everybody knows from WKRP.
Mr. Nessman, what's new?
Mrs. Carlson,
Do you know that I have no walls?
Excuse me?
No walls. My office doesn't have any walls.
Oh, well, sit down and tell me all about it.
Oh, thank you.
But you told a story about people in your office.
Oh, yes. I told Michael the story that, of course, we had, the lateral file cabinets, 5-drawer verticals, all sorts of file cabinets. And people would often move them around when the supervisor wasn't noticing to kind of block themselves off a little bit because it was a cubicle farm at that time.
And you didn't have the privacy that you wanted.
No. This is back when, I was in a cubicle. I didn't have an office. But we had one person who was, a little bit odd, and they didn't really like mixing with people, but they totally walled themselves in with 5-drawer vertical file cabinets all the way around their cubicle and just had a little space where he would get in and out of. and nobody ever said anything to him because I think the supervisor might have been a little bit afraid. But he made a little island for himself with vertical file cabinets.
It reminds me of Les, but it also reminds me of the guy in Office Space with the stapler.
With the stapler, the great Jimmy James,
take my stapler. Betty Jo, I don't know what you did as far as work and career is concerned.
I was a stay-at-home mom, but I was also working full-time as a freelance translator. And so I had, my office was a desk in my bedroom, and I had children and dogs around my feet at all times. So it was
So you were doing the work remote thing years before anybody else did.
Absolutely. For years, I mailed my work in.
Oh, wow.
And then by modem, and that was very, very difficult because I always had to go and find somebody who knew how to work a modem so I could send my documents in. But although I did actually work in a translation office in Ottawa for 2 years, and I had an actual office, it was about 20 by 20. It was a lovely office with a nice window overlooking the Parliament buildings. My boss one day said, if you ever want to paint the office or the furniture or anything, you feel free. I think he was just, trying to save on maintenance money. But little did he suspect. And I painted everything hot pink and hot orange. So
oh my God.
The desks and the filing cabinets and the walls. It was very bright and cheerful, I thought. But whether subsequent denizens of that office appreciated it as much as I did, I'm not sure.
Was this also the Trudeau years? I think.
Yes.
Oh, well, there you go. It would have just been in vogue then. The mod.
I was going to say,
absolutely,
Pierre probably handed you the pots of paint for you to paint it Day-Glo, pink and orange.
I want you to know that I was kissed by Pierre Trudeau too on the lawn of the Parliament building. So I was, but I also should have memories of radio station because I was actually a DJ for 2 years.
No, you weren't.
I was BJ the DJ.
Oh my God!
I might not have ever told Rob that. I don't know.
I don't know if I knew that. That is outstanding.
Was this in college?
This was in college. Yes, I was never actually paid for my services, which was probably a good thing.
Did you was there a special theme to your show? Did you play a certain kind of music?
Yes, I was very cutting edge. I did all the Broadway musicals.
Oh, wow.
So My Fair Lady and South Pacific and all those old chestnuts, And then I would, in between each cut, I would tell the story of what was going on. And I had a wonderful time doing it, but I did have a problem showing up on time for my show. They nearly always had the first cut playing by the time I ran in, and it made all the people in the office very nervous. But that was located in the basement of the engineers' pub, and so it was not quite as fancy as WKRP.
Well, this really is a good segue because one of the themes that's come up again and again during the podcast is women in the workplace, usually seen through the lens of Bailey, but also Jennifer. And you remember back in the first season, Rob, when we posted those great pictures of each of our sort of families, and we saw my mother, the cover girl on the cover of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Circular, the office girls, and then sort of that position just dripping with Mad Men era condescension. And, within a decade or two, you're in charge of everyone there, and it's sort of like, But, this time period, this early 80s time period is when, women are making real concrete advances in the workplace. And that must have been exciting, but also kind of nerve-wracking in some ways, I bet.
Yeah, it was. And just on a funny note, the clothing in this episode, when I would see Bailey's clothes, I said, oh my, well, yep, had that.
So I was right about that when I said that in an earlier episode.
The tie, did that. Now
big shoulder pads, the little frilly tie.
Yes. At least now the dressing is a lot softer and more casual in the workplace. So that's a big advancement, believe me. You don't have to try to dress like a man.
Well, we talked about that too, Rob. Remember, we talked about the fashions in the 80s, especially among businesswomen, becoming more sort of masculine and the lines of the shoulder pads and everything else. Yeah.
I know I made you laugh when I said Gary Sandy's hair is something I always aspired to in those days, because that was the, nice corporate cut, and it was blown dry to perfection.
Oh yeah, feathered and blown dry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who is that? Who is that person?
Yeah, that's Andy.
That's Andy. Okay,
yeah.
I was very taken with that, with his hair. I thought he had the exact same hairdo as Princess Di.
There you go.
That's true. It's true.
That's why I aspired to it, Betty
Absolutely.
Jo. So true.
That's only to be understood.
But Mom, you did have a procession of very unfortunate perms in the 80s. Let's be honest.
Yes, I did. Well, perms were very, very popular. Do you remember
They
Betty
were.
Jo?
I had one too.
Yes.
And I had been a flower child in an early incarnation, and my husband said I now looked like a flower child gone to seed.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to talk about... So, Rob, I mentioned in the notes how, Johnny is playing a twofer just for you at the top of this episode.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Which songs is it? It did jump
out.
It's
Rough Boys by Pete Townsend and then Hungry Heart by The Boss.
Yes, that is pretty outstanding. I mean, you always call out when your smooth rock, yacht rock,
yeah.
when you're getting your yacht rock fix. And so, yeah, we got, here's my dad rock fix. Great classic rock twofer, Pete Townsend, Bruce Springsteen. And in the background, if there was any doubt that we'd stepped into the 80s, there's a Huey Lewis in the News poster.
Oh, my Huey.
Yeah, well, this is where, when I pointed that out to my mom.
Well, just a few years ago, we saw Huey Lewis, and we were down there for our Brigantine Beach vacation on the Jersey Shore. And we went, and then afterwards, we went and had some late dinner upstairs. And who sat 5 tables away from us but Huey Lewis, his wife, and his band, actually eating a meal.
Yeah, Huey eats with his band. He doesn't go
normal.
Off by himself.
He's no diva. He just eats with the whole band. I don't know how his wife feels about that, but all the news just sitting right there. That's wonderful. That's outstanding. Huey was one of I don't know if it was the first, but he was one of the first 3 cassettes that I bought with my own money. It was Huey Lewis, and I had all his cassettes. In fact,
Mom, you should tell them who you saw just this past week.
Oh my goodness, the best show ever! My best friend Patty and I went down to Foxwoods, and she had free tickets to see Sir Tom Jones.
Yeah.
Betty Jo, I was so liking you.
Wasn't it Tom Jones that Elvis used to shoot the TV if he was on?
That was Robert Goulet.
Robert Goulet, I take it all back.
Yeah, well, Tom Jones is in a class by himself.
His voice has not
all in the
changed.
same class.
Okay, well, no, there's obviously a story here. I mean, I don't want to make you guys fight, but okay, so why the divergent reactions to Tom Jones?
Do you have something against sort of like loungy crooners, Betty Jo? Is that what it is?
Sexy Welshman?
I guess that's it. Or maybe he was too far after my time.
Well, it's funny. I did see him down when Dad and I went to Florida the year after we got married, 1973. Saw him down in Miami Beach. So I saw him at the beginning of his career and the end of his career.
Jeez. Well, I mean, this is a great segue into talking about sort of, I always say that, like, my musical influence is really Nana had all the really hip music. Like, my grandmother was the one who introduced me to the Police, Billy Joel. Like, in the early 80s, she was into new wave.
You had a hip grandmother. My
Yes,
grandmother liked, Perry Como and
Harry Belafonte.
Harry Belafonte. She liked music where you could understand what they were singing.
Just like in that last episode, exactly. But Mom, I mean, like, the only times I ever talked about music with you was when you would again sing at family functions, and I would be a little embarrassed by it. But
well, Michael, I don't think you remember. You have such a great memory, but all the hours we spent listening to Barry Manilow live.
Hey, Barry Manilow.
You would jump up and down on the bed. You knew all the words to all the songs.
Oh, yeah.
And we really enjoyed that.
Well, because they were all from commercials.
Yeah.
It was like the State Farm ad and the McDonald's ad.
That was one of the songs, but we loved it. Right in that bedroom there, jumping up and down on the bed.
I know.
Do you have any pictures of that, of Mike jumping up and down on the bed singing Barry Manilow?
Barry Manilow?
I wish I did, but it was a sweet time.
I think we've gone past the point of no return tonight. This might be my bridge too far. I was okay with Billy Joel stuff, but the Barry Manilow,
that marks a man.
All right, now what we're going to do for you here is we're going to do what we call our VSM. Now, all right. Now, this VSM stands for our Very Strange Medley. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, is a medley of songs that you probably know, but I don't think that you know I had something to do with it, okay? And all my artsy friends came to me, all my artsy-fartsy friends came to me, and they said, Manilow, how could you do such a thing? How could you put such a piece of garbage in your act? And then, of course, all my trashy friends came to me, and they said, I love that medley that you do. Ah, yes. And you're all sitting out here tonight. Now, next time you hear any of this stuff coming at you from your radios and televisions, you got to think of us, all of us up here on the stage, okay? And then you can turn off your radios and televisions and... See if you remember this one. There's barking at the kitchen, yelling in the hall. Ringing at the doorbell, pounding on the wall. Kids out of sight, and kids in the way. No time to cook on this hectic day. Come on, come on, come on. Get a bucket of chicken, finger licking good. Have a barrel of fun. Goodbye, ho hum. Say hello to your family. Come on, everyone. Get Kentucky Fried Chicken. Have a barrel of fun.
Oh, well, I think that's a good place to... Rob, I think
we've had a lot of fun today, folks.
Jeez, I mean, this is the kind of episode that you want to send to your mom and show her how funny it is, but...
she already knows.
She already knows, exactly. Thank you both for being such big fans of the podcast, because, there was a time in that first season where we weren't ever thinking we would get, again, hundreds and hundreds of listeners, but the two of you kept giving feedback. Betty Jo, every comment that you've put on Facebook has been a delight, and I've really appreciated them all. And I don't know what else to say, Rob. I mean...
all I can do is just underline and amplify everything Mike's saying, that, I would love... the best thing after an episode came out would be Mike forwarding the email of memories from Karen, that things that it reminded her of and that sort of thing. So from early on, we joke about it, but it's true. Some of our best audience was our moms. And this was like, I knew this was going to be so much fun, and then this was like 5 times, 10 times more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, there was no need to worry. I think we have a couple of born show people here, and I think
you guys should do a podcast.
You guys should do a podcast. Yeah, seriously, I'd listen to that one.
Bringing up entertaining but it's slightly eccentric sons.
And they're the best kind, aren't they, Betty?
Absolutely.
You're so sappy, Mom.
Oh, shucks. Well, it is Christmas, Mike.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Christmas in October.
Ho, ho, ho.
Well, happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah, and hey, it's going to be Canadian Thanksgiving before you know it.
Right around the corner. Happy Columbus Day.
All these holidays, that holiday inflation striking again. That was really good. Thank you both so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
great.
for having us, and Rob and Betty Jo. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Karen.
That was great. That was fun. Bye, guys.
Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back soon with more WKRP riffs and memories. If you like this well enough to listen to the whole thing, tell somebody about it.
We're online at holdmyorderterribledresser.com, which, believe it or not, wasn't taken. We're also available on iTunes, and we always appreciate your iTunes subscriptions, reviews, ratings, and downloads. So get on there and give us some stars.
Good day, and may the good news be yours.
If you've ever wondered whatever became of me, I'm living on the air in Cincinnati, WKRP. I'm at WKRP in Cincinnati.